Her chest brushed against my hand. I froze. I knew I should have pulled away, but then she held it, and neither of us said a word. The movie kept playing, but I couldn't hear a thing, because in that moment, something between us changed forever. Let me tell you what happened that night, and why I've never looked at her the same again. Subscribe now, because when a line gets crossed quietly, sometimes you don't even realize it until it's too late. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Walter. At the age of 53, I have spent the last 6 years residing in a humble wooden house, nestled on the outskirts of a serene little town. My wife departed this world peacefully in her sleep. They spoke softly, with a sense of tranquility. Yet, grief seldom comes quietly, does it? We chose not to have children. Perhaps we lingered too long. Regardless, this house remains unchanged. Its creaky floors, the familiar old armchair, and the enduring silence persist. In the past, I shared my knowledge of woodcraft at a community college. These days, I find myself immersed in small projects at a local workshop, dedicating a few mornings each week to this creative endeavor. For the remainder of the hours, it's merely me, the trees swaying outside, and the persistent hum of a ceiling fan that endlessly spins. In all honesty, solitude has become my familiar companion. Yet, the silence can indeed bring a certain ache at times, particularly in those languid summer afternoons, when the sun casts its golden rays at the perfect angle and the world seems to hold its breath, anticipating an elusive moment that never arrives. On a Tuesday morning, the phone suddenly rang. It was indeed Elise. She is the daughter of my late wife's younger sister. Once, in her childhood, she affectionately referred to me as Uncle Ed. At this moment, she has reached the age of 20. She expressed a desire for a change of scenery, yearning for a respite from the city, and inquired if she might stay for a few weeks. I paused, not out of reluctance for her arrival, but due to the uncertainty of what emotions it might awaken within me, welcoming another presence into this home once more. Joyful echoes of mirth. Melody. Another coffee mug. I replied in the affirmative, naturally. At that moment, I had no inkling that her presence would herald the onset of an unforeseen journey, one for which I was utterly unprepared. The moment I laid eyes on her once more, poised on my front porch with a modest duffel bag draped over her shoulder, I found myself struggling to recognize her. "Uncle Ed," she said, her half-smile lingering, gentle, known, yet imbued with a refreshing novelty. She would utter it in a high-pitched, whimsical tone, darting about in her mismatched socks amidst the laughter and warmth of summer barbecues. In that moment, she stood tall and composed, her eyes reflecting the wisdom of experiences that had enriched her view of the world. At the age of 20, she found herself in her sophomore year of college, immersed in the study of physical therapy. I extended my hand to take her bag, yet she declined with a gentle shake of her head. "It's light," she remarked, entering as if she were meant to be there. Perhaps she truly did. She glided through the house as if it were her own, bare feet gliding over the hardwood, hair swept up in a carefree bun, a soft hum escaping her lips as she settled into the guest room. We found our cadence almost immediately. She exhibited a gracious demeanor, always careful not to intrude, assisted with the dishes unprompted, neatly folded laundry that belonged to others, and brewed 2 cups of coffee rather than just one. She occupied the void I hadn't realized had expanded so profoundly. Our conversations unfolded on various evenings, delving into her studies, her part-time role at the campus wellness center, and her aspirations of establishing a small practice in the future. Her words carried a certain thoughtfulness, imbued with a calm, grounded energy that suggested a wisdom beyond her 20 years. Yet, our relationship maintained a sense of decorum. Relating to family, I was the uncle and she was the niece. We maintained a considerate space between us, both in proximity and in feelings. Yet, there were instances, subtle ones, when I would find her gaze lingering on me for just a heartbeat longer than expected. Or I'd enter a room and she'd smile as if I were the very person she had been yearning to encounter. I reassured myself that it was merely gratitude. Cozy warmth envelopes the soul, the purity found within the known. She was, after all, the niece of my late wife. I had known her since her childhood days, Here there existed lines, distinct and unmistakable, and yet her presence ignited a spark within. Absence of longing. Not at that moment, only warmth. A sense of tranquility settled in my chest, a sensation I hadn't experienced in years, as if the house had lingered in slumber for far too long, and she had finally drawn back a window to welcome the refreshing breeze once more. Home welcomed me just after the clock struck 8. The sky was gradually surrendering to twilight, as a gentle summer rain began to dance softly upon the roof. I lingered in the workshop, absorbed in the task of completing a cedar frame that had been commissioned by someone. As I made my way home, I retrieved Elise's cardigan from the laundry. It was her beloved piece, the soft gray one she cherished wearing in the mornings. The air was tinged with a delicate hint of lavender and the warmth of sunlight, and for reasons unknown, I felt an inexplicable urge to keep it close, rather than abandon it to the shadows of the downstairs. I ascended the stairs with deliberate slowness, the familiar creak of the floor echoing in the stillness. Her door stood ajar, neither fully closed nor securely latched. I imagined she could be lost in a book, perhaps drifting off into slumber. I refrained from knocking. I ought to have knocked. I nudged the door ajar, just wide enough to slip the cardigan inside. Softly, with precision. It was at that moment that she came into view. Elise lay on her side, her back turned toward the door. The lamp beside her bed emitted a soft, golden glow, its light dancing delicately in the stillness. Her shirt bore a gentle disarray, the hem teasingly elevated just above her hip, while her hand, it glided languidly beneath the delicate fabric of her shorts. Her breath came in shallow gasps, intentional. She was oblivious to my presence. She remained unaware. In that fleeting moment, time twisted and contorted. My hand stilled on the doorknob, the folded cardigan cradled in my other arm. I ought to have walked away. I ought to have shut the door and descended the stairs as if nothing had transpired. Yet I refrained. As I started to withdraw, Elise tilted her head ever so slightly, just enough for our gazes to connect. Her lips parted with a soft, breathless gasp. She remained still. I did not either. We found ourselves in a moment that enveloped us, frozen in time. Then, like emerging from a trance, I averted my eyes, retreated gently, and closed the door softly behind me. I lingered in the hallway, my heart pounding in my ears, the cardigan clutched tightly in my hands. I was left in a state of bewilderment, grappling with the significance of what had just unfolded before my eyes. All I sensed was that the atmosphere in that house had shifted irrevocably. Sleep eluded me that night. Not quite. As I reclined in bed, my gaze fixed upon the ceiling, I absorbed the gentle hum of the fan and the soft murmur of the wind brushing against the windowpane. Yet, in my thoughts, I could only envision the gentle glow of Elise's room, and the moment our eyes locked together. What I witnessed there was not shame, nor shall there be fear, simply consciousness, a sensation that remains, echoing in the silence long after the experience has faded away. As dawn broke, the elusive name for my feelings remained just out of reach, yet it lingered in the atmosphere, reminiscent of the fragrance of rain preceding a tempest, recognizable, charged, and utterly inescapable. As I entered the kitchen, she was already present, barefoot in an oversized t-shirt, hair cascading down, cradling a mug of coffee in her hands. "Good morning," she remarked, casting a quick look back over her shoulder. Her voice carried a gentler timbre than it typically did. Her smile, it contained a glimmer of something elusive, something I struggled to identify. We danced around one another as we always did, softly spoken, laid back. Yet, a change had occurred. She extended the conversation, savoring each moment. Her gaze frequently intertwined with my own. Her laughter flowed more freely, a warmth in her voice, and her presence felt nearer. And what about me? I endeavored to maintain a sense of normalcy, unwavering, yet within me, a tumult of thoughts swirled, elusive and unyielding to my attempts at stillness. Later, after breakfast had faded into the background, she propped herself against the counter, her gaze fixed on me, bearing that same enigmatic expression that always left me guessing. "I hope you don't find it strange because of what happened yesterday," she said, her tone a blend of lightheartedness and seriousness. Yet, there are moments when a girl must discover the art of loving herself, don't you think? She remained utterly still, her gaze unwavering. I simply waited. I gazed at her, my throat parched. A myriad of thoughts danced on the tip of my tongue, each one vying for expression. I ought to have expressed it, yet none of them arrived. I simply nodded in response. A subtle, hushed movement, yet within me, a sudden spark illuminated the shadows, as if a match had been ignited in a pitch-black room. That afternoon, Elise came back from a quaint thrift shop in the heart of downtown, her paper bag brimming with an array of vintage garments. The thrill that danced across her features took me back to her childhood. Dashing toward me, eager to unveil her latest discoveries as if they were precious gems. "I discovered some adorable items," she remarked, lifting the bag with a flourish. "May I present a brief fashion showcase?" I let out a soft laugh, giving a nod of agreement. "Go ahead and indulge yourself." She slipped away into her room for a brief moment, only to return with the first dress. A floral sundress, airy and relaxed, exuding a charm that only someone like Elise could wear with such ease. Yet it was the third ensemble that stirred an unexpected emotion within me. It was unpretentious, deep navy, tailored at the waist, elegantly understated in its design, yet form-fitting. It embraced her curves with a subtle grace that was impossible to overlook. She glided into the living room, her bare feet whispering against the floor, gently smoothing the fabric as she pivoted gracefully. "The lighting is more favorable out here," she remarked with a nonchalant air. "Are you able to see the rear? It seems the zipper has become ensnared." She pivoted gracefully, her fingers sweeping her hair away from her neck. "Would you be so kind as to assist me in zipping it up, Uncle Ed?" I paused for a moment, just a heartbeat, but then moved ahead. My fingers glided over the delicate fabric at her back, and then her skin. Cozy, fluid, the zipper pulled gently, a subtle reminder of its presence. My hand quivered as I lifted it, mindful to avoid contact beyond what was necessary. Then she murmured, her voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "Your hands radiate warmth. It envelopes me in a sense of safety." I stood still, caught in a moment of sheer disbelief. Her voice lacked a playful lilt. Not jesting. The silence enveloped the surroundings. Truthful. I released the zipper, taking a step back. She remained facing away. Not a single word passed between us. Yet the atmosphere surrounding us had transformed once more. Denser this time, as if a truth had been recognized, though no one had the courage to articulate it. As the evening settled in, Elise inquired whether we might indulge in a movie together. "Something ancient," she murmured. "Something languid." We chose a film from the 1950s, rendered in striking black and white. The kind where looks conveyed deeper meanings than spoken language, and the quiet moments between acts revealed all that needed to be understood. She nestled beside me on the couch, her legs folded beneath her, a gentle blanket enveloping us both. Midway through the film, she inched closer. Her head nestled against my shoulder, and I allowed it to remain in that place. I endeavored to concentrate on the screen, on the actors, the dialogue, but all that enveloped me was the warmth of her body pressed against mine. Her breath hung in the air. Her presence lingered in the air. It was not the inaugural occasion on which we found ourselves in such proximity. Yet this was unlike anything else. The distance that once separated us had diminished. She shifted once more, just a subtle movement, rearranging herself beneath the blanket. In that fleeting moment, her chest grazed my hand. Gentle, surprising, electrifying. I stood still, caught in a moment of sheer disbelief. My fingers moved with a life of their own, beginning to retreat. Yet, just as I was about to, she extended her hand toward mine, softly, and kept it motionless. Silence prevails. The film softly unfolds in the background, its light dancing across our faces as the television flickers gently. I averted my gaze from her. Her gaze was averted from mine, yet the sensation lingered between us. The transition, the gasping for air, The resonant clash of two heartbeats fills a room that has grown eerily silent. The conclusion of the film escapes my memory. All that lingers in my mind is the profound silence, the gentle pressure of her hand resting atop mine, and the silence that conveyed more than any whisper ever might. Silence enveloped the room. Silence envelopes the surroundings. Elise's hand lingered gently atop mine. Neither of us had shifted, time stretching into what felt like minutes, perhaps even longer. The flickering light of the television bathed her face in a gentle blue glow, and for a fleeting, surreal instant, the universe condensed to the intimate distance that separated us. At that moment, bang, 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 the noise fractured the stillness, reminiscent of breaking glass. Elise sprang to attention. The blanket cascaded from her shoulder. I instinctively withdrew my hand, my heart pounding, breath trapped in the liminal space between my chest and throat. The knock resounded once more, quicker this time, filled with a sense of urgency. I rose abruptly, adjusting my shirt with a swift motion as I approached the door. Elise remained in her seat, her eyes wide and her lips slightly parted. The quietude within her had transformed into a fragile thing. As I swung the door open, a face I knew all too well appeared before me. Ryan. Her relative, a person in their late 20s, consistently courteous, residing just a few blocks away. "Pardon my intrusion," he remarked, lifting a paper bag aloft. "My mother asked me to deliver this. She vowed to send your way a certain kind of herbal tea." I inclined my head, offering a courteous smile. "Thank you. Thank you for your kindness." There was a stirring presence just behind me. Elise rose, her movements deliberate and measured. "Hello, Ryan," she murmured, her voice soft and seemingly distant. He pivoted, a grin spreading across his face. "I hope I'm not intruding." A moment of silence lingered in the air. "No," she responded with haste. "You truly didn't." After a pause that stretched like an eternity, she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I simply require a bit of distance." Her gaze avoided mine. She grasped the bag from his hand, bestowed a subtle smile and pivoted away, strolled by me, beyond the couch, along the corridor, and into her chamber. With a gentle click, the door sealed her departure. I lingered by the door, lost in thought, gazing into the void. The atmosphere had shifted once more. This time it's not electric, simply devoid. The morning arrived, shrouded in a hushed, gray stillness. The rain that had graced the night had ceased, yet the clouds lingered, draping the sky in a muted shroud. As I stepped into the kitchen, still wiping the remnants of slumber from my eyes, I anticipated the familiar sight of the coffee pot bubbling away, perhaps even catching a glimpse of Elise at the counter, her soft hum filling the air as it often did. Yet, the room stood devoid of any presence. There, on the table, nestled next to the sugar jar, lay a folded piece of paper. I grasped it, my heart already plummeting. I found myself departing sooner than I had originally intended. The schedule for a class has been adjusted to an earlier time. I appreciate your generosity in allowing me to stay these past few weeks. I apologize. Elise. No punctuation follows. I'm sorry. Only those two words linger, suspended like a breath in the crisp, cold air. The house stood in silence, excessively tranquil. I drifted into the living room, uncertain of my purpose, and found my gaze fixed upon the couch. The blanket we had once shared lingered, still draped over the edge. The cushion, once cradling her head, bore a subtle indentation, a testament to her warmth that was now gently dissipating. I settled into my seat, gradually, allowing the stillness to seep into the very structure of the home. It had returned, that serene stillness I once recognized. Yet the tranquility had vanished, seemed devoid of substance. My gaze wandered to the hallway where she had vanished the previous night. I endeavored to revisit the moment, to unravel its meaning, to categorize it as if it were a dream that was never truly mine. Yet the pressure of her hand upon mine, the melody of her voice, the manner in which she held on, it hung in the air. What on earth was I contemplating? What had I wrought? And yet, Why did a fragment of my soul long to experience that once more? I lingered in that spot for what felt like an eternity, isolated, not haunted by the events that transpired, yet the depth of my yearning for it to unfold once more was profound. The weather remained largely unchanged in the days that followed Elise's departure. The clouds hung in the air, low and brooding, as if the sky bore a weighty secret within its depths. As I settled by the kitchen window, I cradled a lukewarm cup of tea in my hands, the familiar chipped mug a testament to years gone by. My eyes wandered to the yard lush grass, glistening from the remnants of last night's rain, and the wooden swing gently swaying in the breeze. Once more, the house fell into a serene silence, yet now it seemed possessed by echoes of the past. Through a voice, a fragrance, a presence that once resonated softly in the periphery, akin to a melody you hadn't noticed you'd internalized until the notes faded away. I grasped my phone, not with any specific intention in mind, merely a routine, a mere whisper to break the stillness. And then it illuminated the surroundings. A fresh communication has arrived. From Elise. My breath hitched before I even dared to open it. Shall we embark on that journey once more? 8 words, uncomplicated, weighty, the sort that doesn't seek an immediate response, the type that bides its time. I gazed at the screen, my thumb poised in anticipation. The rhythm of my heart resonated more profoundly than the steady ticking of the ancient clock that loomed behind me. A part of me felt the urge to erase it, act as if it never arrived. Another segment held my gaze captive. The words wavered slightly, as though the screen had succumbed to a veil of mist. I blinked, momentarily caught off guard, still present, patiently awaiting. Subsequently, at the bottom of the screen, an unexpected presence emerged. 3 ellipses, composing. I never typed a reply, at least not right away. The 3 dots lingered for a while, then disappeared. Maybe she changed her mind. Maybe she was just waiting, like I was, for something neither of us could say out loud. I placed the phone face down on the table. The message still buzzed in my chest. The clock ticked. The swing outside moved with the wind. And I just sat there, fingers wrapped around a cooling mug, eyes on nothing, lost in everything. What we'd shared wasn't planned. It wasn't even spoken, but it happened. And it changed the room we once sat in, changed the way I saw that couch, changed the way I'd see her. Forever. Some things you don't name, because naming them gives them weight, makes them real, so you carry them in silence, in breath, in memory. I still don't know what I'll say, or if I'll say anything at all. Maybe tomorrow, maybe never, but I know this much. That night didn't end when the credits rolled. And some moments, some silences, never really go away. There are moments that never ask for answers, only that you remember them, even when no one else knows you do. If the story stirred something in you, if you've ever felt a moment you couldn't explain, tell us below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, because sometimes what we don't say says the most.